The Switch 2 is filled with good games. Whether you're into hack-and-slash chaos, deep JRPGs, cozy life sims, or open-world adventures, there's something for everyone. Today we're running through the top 15 games you need on Nintendo Switch 2. Let's get into it. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. You're dropped into the imprisoning war the moment Ganondorf rose and chaos took over ancient Hyrule. You play as Princess Zelda, King Rauru, Minoru, and a full roster of Hylian heroes, fighting through literal armies of enemies. The gameplay is pure Musou, that Dynasty Warrior style, where you're mowing down thousands of enemies at once, but layered with Zonai devices, elemental abilities, and sync strikes, where two characters team up for massive combo attacks. Every character plays differently, and the game actually tells a complete, canonical story that fills in gaps from Tears of the Kingdom in ways that genuinely hit. The writing is strong, boss fights are epic, and some of the unlockable characters are fantastic surprises. It runs at a rock-solid 60 frames per second in single-player and around 30 frames per second in two-player co-op, with a noticeable resolution bump over what past Warriors games achieved.
As for the light itself, it seems my theory of the duel is correct.
Devil May Cry 5 Devil Hunter Edition. The story drops you into Red Grave City, where a demonic tree called the Qlipoth erupts from the ground and starts feeding on humans. And three hunters, Nero, V, and Dante, are called to deal with a demon king named Urizen, who has some deeply personal ties to the series' history. The gameplay is about style. There's a rank system grading every fight from D up to SSS, rewarding you for mixing attacks, switching weapons, staying aggressive, and never getting hit. Nero uses Devil Breaker prosthetic arms for combo extensions and grabs. Dante has 4 melee weapons, 4 guns, and 4 styles he switches between on the fly. V commands 3 familiars and finishes weakened enemies with a cane tap. Virgil is also fully playable as a bonus character, with one of the deepest and most complex movesets in the game. Capcom hit a locked 60 frames per second in both docked and handheld modes at around 1080p via DLSS. Star Fox. You're piloting an R-Wing through the Lylat system, defending against the mad scientist Andross, who wants to conquer everything he can touch. The gameplay is a rail shooter. You fly forward, barrel roll to deflect lasers, somersault to dodge, and use barrel weapons and bombs to clear waves of fighters and capital ships. Different missions open based on performance and hidden objectives, with multiple branching paths and a true ending that takes more than one playthrough to reach. What really lands here is the storytelling upgrade. Instead of quick radio barks, you get full cutscenes before missions, a more nuanced Fox still stepping out of his father's shadow, and a Falco-Fox dynamic that actually feels like brothers, rather than one-sided hostility. The game runs at a locked 60 frames per second at approximately 1080p docked, and looks genuinely stunning with a lush, detailed Lylat system. Mario Kart World. There's a fully connected open world now, linking every course across a massive Mario landscape you can actually drive through between races. Grand Prix, time trials, and balloon battle return, but the standout new mode is Knockout Tour. 24 players race across multiple linked courses, and 4 get eliminated at every checkpoint, trimming the field down until one winner crosses the final line. It's Battle Royale energy applied to racing, and it works brilliantly. The mechanics get small but meaningful updates. Wall riding sections and rail grinding open alternate routes, and the default item holding is now automatic, so newer players aren't constantly dropping their banana by accident. The open world itself is packed with hidden costumes, photo spots, and little missions that give you reasons to explore. It runs at a native 1440p docked and 1080p handheld, both at a locked 60 frames per second, no DLSS, no upscaling tricks, just clean native output. Mina the Hollower. You're Mina, a small mouse and expert hollower, hired to restore the failing spark generators on the cursed Tenebrous Isle. Her core ability is burrowing. She can dive into the ground and tunnel short distances at speed, pop up under enemies for a launch attack, swim through deep water as a burrow, and cross gaps no jump would reach. Above ground, she uses a whip as her primary weapon alongside a selection of sidearms and equipable trinkets that let you customize her approach to different fights. The healing system stings in the best way. Damaging enemies fills a vial that you can spend to recover, but taking a hit before healing loses that window permanently. Progression uses bones as currency, with a Dark Souls-light retrieval system when you die. It's punishing but fair, and bosses are genuinely fantastic. The game runs at 120 frames per second in both docked and handheld modes, with docked offering 4K/60 frames per second or 1440p/120 frames per second options. Blueprints. You inherit a 45-room mansion called Mount Holly with one unusual condition attached to the will. Find the secret 46th room. Every day, you enter the mansion fresh and draft rooms, one at a time, from random sets of 3 choices, placing them to build a path deeper into the estate. Every room you enter costs steps your energy for the day. Run out and you reset. The mansion reshuffles and you try again the next morning. Knowledge sticks even when progress doesn't. You learn which room combinations unlock corridors to deeper wings, which items you need to acquire before opening certain doors, and slowly, the deeper mystery of why Room 46 exists starts coming together through scattered notes and environmental clues. The writing is quiet and unsettling. Blackmail, literary ghosts, and a house that feels like it's watching you. Pragmata puts you in the boots of Hugh Williams, a gruff space engineer stranded on a decaying lunar research station called the Cradle after his crew is wiped out responding to a distress call. The station's AI ID-US has gone rogue, armed robots are everywhere, and the workers have all vanished. You find Diana, an android that looks like a kid, thinks like a kid, but can hack anything on the station from your back. The combat loop is fast and layered. You shoot, dodge, manage ammo, and call Diana's hacks simultaneously against enemies that require different approaches depending on their shielding and behavior. Boss fights are spectacular and scale in both size and complexity. Between missions, Hugh teaches Diana things, life lessons, small moments, and watching her curiosity collide with his cynicism is what actually makes you care about the game. The RE engine runs it, targeting 60 frames per second on Switch 2, upscaling from an internal 540p to 1080p via DLSS.
Check. Take this!
Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. You play as a fisherman's son on Estard Island, the only land left in the world as far as anyone knows. You and your friends discover a shrine that sends you back in time, or you find that entire civilizations have been sealed away by a malevolent force. Your mission is to travel to each sealed region in the past, restore it by solving its crisis, and bring it back to the present. The story is told as a series of self-contained vignettes, each island its own tragedy and triumph, and some of them are genuinely moving. The battle system gets a serious update. Vocations now have unique signature abilities. A moonlighting mechanic lets you level 2 jobs simultaneously. Auto battle handles grinding quickly, and you can instantly bop overworld enemies you've outleveled without triggering a fight. It runs smoothly at 60 frames per second, with crisp visuals and minimal load times.
Lightning slash!
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. You travel through the Vatican, the Egyptian pyramids, the jungles of Sukhothai, and beyond, and every location has that cinematic indie energy. The gameplay prioritizes exploration, puzzle solving, and improvised combat over run-and-gun action. You sneak past guards, use disguises to access restricted areas, crack environmental puzzles using Indy's notebook for clues, and fight with a whip, fists, and whatever's lying around. Troy Baker's performance captures the character brilliantly, and the cutscenes look like Spielberg directed them. On Switch 2, it runs at a consistent 30 frames per second, 1080p docked, and 720p handheld with DLSS maintaining solid image quality. Machine Games specifically locked to 30 to ensure quality held across the board. For the game's pacing and genre, the frame rate never feels like a limitation. One of 2026's best ports. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The story picks up immediately after Midgar Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, Barret, Red 13, Yuffie, and Cait Sith head out into the wider world chasing Sephiroth, while Shenra is still right behind them. It's a massive open-world RPG now, with huge regional zones full of side quests, environmental secrets, minigames, and optional hunts. And for once in an open-world game, almost everything you do feels like it's worth doing. The combat builds on Remake, with synergy skills, paired moves between specific characters that create powerful temporary bonuses. And every character's moveset has been deepened significantly. Tifa manually builds chi levels for burst windows. Barret has rhythm-based cannon charging. Aerith controls large areas of space with time-delayed magic. Rebirth earns its 65+ hour runtime because every part of it has something interesting to offer. It runs at a locked 30 frames per second using DLSS from a dynamic 540p to 1080p docked. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. The story covers Cloud Strife arriving in Midgar as a mercenary hired by Avalanche, an eco-resistance group fighting Shinra Electric Power Company's Mako reactors. What was originally just the opening hours of the 1997 classic becomes a 30+ hour standalone epic with fully fleshed out characters, cinematics that look genuinely current gen, and a combat system that rewards real engagement. Fights are hybrid action RPG. You move in real time and use the ATB gauge to pull off abilities, spells, and items. Cloud, Tifa, Barret, and Aerith all play completely differently, and you swap between them mid-fight. The Intergrade content adds the intermission chapter starring Yuffie, which is great and adds real emotional depth. On Switch, too, it hits a locked 30 frames per second at 1080p, docked with DLSS magic, bringing it close to PS5's performance mode quality level.
No match for me.
Resident Evil Requiem. The last time a new mainline Resident Evil launched on a Nintendo console on day one was RE4 in 2005. Capcom came back in 2026 with Requiem, and it's a statement. You alternate between two protagonists, Grace Ashcroft, an FBI analyst who is genuinely terrified and approaches horror as a person who doesn't belong in one, giving the game a raw, vulnerable tension, and Leon Kennedy, whose campaign leans toward action and familiar RE confidence. Grace plays mostly first person. Leon's sections are over the shoulder. The horror design is relentless. There are classic RE stalker enemies, clever resource management, tense environmental puzzles, and some of the best set pieces the series has ever produced. The story involves a new biological threat with deep series connections, and the dual structure pays off by the end. On Switch 2, Capcom targets 60 frames per second using DLSS from an internal 540p to output around 1080p docked. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition. You play as V, a mercenary in a sprawling, neon-drenched megalopolis built around capitalism, body modification, and survival. After a heist goes catastrophically wrong, you end up with the mind of Johnny Silverhand, a long-dead rock star terrorist voiced by Keanu Reeves, slowly overwriting your own. You have a corporate army looking for you, and a mystery at the center of Night City that has global consequences. The gameplay is deep, open, first-person RPG. Build V as a hacker, a gunner, a stealth operative, or a melee bruiser. The game responds differently to every approach. The Ultimate Edition includes Phantom Liberty, a spy thriller expansion in a walled district called Dogtown, with Idris Elba and its own fully realized storyline. On Switch, too, there are two modes: Quality at 30 frames per second, targeting 1080p, and Performance, targeting 40 frames per second at 720p. The 40 frames per second performance mode with VRR in handheld is where it shines most.
Gotta keep moving! Those pendejos are stubborn!
Donkey Kong Bananza is the best 3D platformer Nintendo has released since Super Mario Odyssey, and it's genuinely competing for the title. DK is working in the mines on Ingot Isle when Void Co., a villain organization led by Void Kong, steals all the Banandium gems and collapses everything. DK gets sent crashing into the planet itself, meets a girl named Pauline with the ability to sing and reshape the environment, and together they punch and dig their way toward the core of the world. The central mechanic is environmental destruction, and it's unlike anything in a platformer before. Almost everything in every level can be smashed, torn apart, dug through, or grabbed and thrown. Walls, ceilings, floors, rock formations, entire terrain sections. DK's punch has material interactions. Soft rock crumbles differently from hard mineral. Ice shatters differently from dirt.
You'll discover in the underground world. So carve your own path with DK's abilities.
Pokémon Pokopia. You play as Ditto, taking the form of a missing trainer in a post-disaster Kanto where every human has mysteriously vanished. With a wandering Professor Tangrowth as your guide, the goal is simple: rebuild this ruined world. Terraform the wasteland, craft habitats, make Kanto somewhere Pokémon actually want to live, and hope the humans find their way back. The gameplay is built like Dragon Quest Builders mixed with Animal Crossing with a dash of Minecraft. You gather materials, use grid-based crafting at workbenches, place and decorate habitats suited to specific Pokémon species, and fulfill requests from your growing community of residents. What makes it special is how the Pokémon themselves feed back into your toolkit. Ditto learns moves from each one it befriends. Befriend Squirtle, and you can water dead terrain back to life. Befriend Scyther, and you can clear overgrown paths. "15 games covering basically every genre, all on one hybrid console." The Switch 2 launched with a lineup nobody expected this strong. Drop a comment with what you're playing first. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the next one.